statutes that really don't apply to anybody, and if we get mixed up on them, they operate as a contract.
That's kind of the rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So
Or
that's
money.
what we're depending on is the mixed up aspect of it.
Right. Right, yeah. So a lot of you guys probably already understand some of this stuff, but we'll have Canadian statutes and US statutes. There's color of justice, believe it or not. It's the appearance of justice. Color of title, color of law, color of money.
Should have color of rights on there.
Yeah, really. Positive law, there's positive law is law passed with legitimate authority. And then it's law passed to protect the rights of the people. And non-positive law is callable legislation, and this dictionary of Canadian law applies to certain groups of people and does not apply to we the people, and operates as a contract. Positive law is law actually and specifically adopted by proper authority. Okay, that's the operative word for the government of an organized drill society. Now, I was recently visiting my daughter in Arizona, and it was interesting because I had, I hadn't been working for a year and a half, so I had time. And I went to the Arizona State Law Library at the Arizona Capitol, and they got a pretty good law library there. And I was going through all these old Arizona statutes, and even the current ones. Now what I'm talking about is the actual acts that are passed by the legislature, okay? And which in Canada they would be called the Hansards.
Hansards?
Yeah. Anyways, so when you go through those things, you'll find all sorts of defects, okay? And so if there's a defect, it's not passed by proper authority, okay? But the burden's on you to understand that and to bring up that issue. So a good example is, there was a guy, when Arizona was originally part of New Mexico territory. And I think it was 1865, I think, they became Arizona territory, separated out of New Mexico territory. There was this guy, I think he was the chief judge of the Supreme Court or something like that, that made up this, his name was Howell. So they made up this Howell's Code that was supposed to be a code of laws for Arizona. And he was in Arizona on a vacation. And he was there in December, and they went, and you can see in the journals, okay, which is basically the same as the Hansards in Canada, in the journals of the legislature, where, like in August, they're saying that we need to pass this Howell's, or we need to appropriate this money to get this Howell Code so we can adopt this code of laws. And that was in August. And then in September, they're passing all of these Howell codes, okay? And normally, in any time actually, in the U.S. congressional stuff, or even should be in Canada, I'm sure, but normally when they pass an act, the text of the act is in there, right? And it's supposed to be, and they're supposed to read it. You know, that's one of the things, they're supposed to read it 3 times, right? That's what it says, right? And so they'll sit there and, well, with this Howell Code, what they did is they said, well, read the act, but the act isn't there. It's not there anywhere. And they passed all of these sections in the Howell Code, and there's no act. And the U.S. Congress does this stuff too, where they'll say, it's 2 minutes till quitting time. We need to pass this act. And so then they said, okay, well, let's read the act. So they read the act, and then that's the end, right? And then they have the text of the act. Well, the text of the act is like 800 pages. So what they're doing is they're reading the title only is what they're doing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're saying they read the act, and they didn't read the act. How could it'd take them a week to read 800 pages or more? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd take them probably 2 to 3 weeks to read 800 pages. You know, and You know, that's the stuff they do. So those are not properly enacted. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they do it all the time. And so anyways, I just wanted to point that out. That, oh, another thing they do is they put an emergency clause in, okay? They'll say, it's an emergency. We need to pass this bill because it's an emergency. Well, the courts have ruled that emergency is justification for nothing. So what they're essentially saying is that this bill, we're not gonna pass it, or they're saying that we're only gonna pass this bill for the sheeple that don't know the law. You see what I'm saying? That's essentially what they're saying. And so they put emergency clauses in there, they'll play all these legislative games, throwing their rules out, they'll dispense with the rules, and just do it however they wanna do it. I guarantee you the same stuff is going on here in Alberta and various places in Canada. I haven't had a chance to go and look in the law library and see, but I can just about guarantee it. Matter of fact, I'm positive. I know in Ontario, they actually admitted that the Highway Traffic Act was not positive law. So,
Tax Act.
right, and what happens is the lieutenant governor or the governor general, they know this stuff is going on. They know they didn't do it, and so they won't sign it. You see what I'm saying? So the act doesn't have the governor's signature, and so there's no royal assent. So, I mean, that's just further evidence that you got no authority to impose this act on anybody. This is nothing. This is color of law. This is taken from the U.S. Office of Law Revision Council's website. And if you look at the bottom in the highlighting, it says certain titles of the code have been enacted into positive law. And then you go down further, the next couple sentences, it says the following titles of the code have been enacted into positive law. Well, we're going to look at the ones that are non-positive law. So there's probably about 25 titles there. And then now we're going to go to the ones, sorry?
So it's about half of them.
Yeah, that are positive law. Well, even the ones that are positive law are questionable. But so we'll be worried about the ones that are not positive law, okay? So these are non-positive law. Domestic security, that's Homeland Security, by the way. They have no law, no authority to do that. Agriculture, actually agriculture is farmers, and farmers, most of them have corporations and stuff like that, and so if you have a corporation, then it's a contract anyways. You see what I'm saying? If it's not positive law, then it's a contract. Aliens and nationality, well, aliens, if they want to come to America, then that's a contract. So then it wouldn't be positive law, but that's not positive law. Banking, same thing. Banking's a privilege, and so then that wouldn't be. Trade and commerce, same thing. Customs, internal revenue is not positive law. They're openly admitting it. A lot of this stuff it's natural, actually, that it wouldn't be positive law, because what's it got to do with we the people? You see what I'm saying? And so then it's a contract by definition. The income tax bill never received royal assent in America. The British North America bill never received royal assent. The customs bill never received royal assent. The immigration bill never received royal assent. In Ontario, the highway traffic bill never received royal assent. There's a friend of mine, Patrick Ellis, that I was mentioning earlier. He's done a bunch of research, and that's what he calls them, is, you know, this bill, because it's not an act. It never got royal assent. It means nothing. If the British North America bill never got royal assent, that there's no British North America Act. And anything done under the British North America Act is a fraud and a nullity, as far as we the people are concerned. You see what I'm saying? So they know they don't have any authority over we the people. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights, it imposes no duties, affords no protection, it creates no office, it is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed. I mean, that's says it very well. Non-positive law is color of law. Non-positive law statutes are martial law statutes. Non-positive laws have no authority and mean absolutely nothing. If there's any defect in the legislation, then there's no act. Patrick Ellis correctly calls the B&A Act the B&A bill, because that is what it is. It means absolutely nothing to we the people, okay? And really, if you think about it, what's it got to do with me? It has nothing to do with me. It's got to do with this corporation and the internal operation of this corporation. It has nothing to do with me. See what I'm saying? So, you know, colorability. A doctrine invoked when a statute is addressed to a matter outside jurisdiction, though it bears formal trappings of a matter within jurisdiction of the enacting legislature. And that's P.W. Hogg, Constitutional Law of Canada. Colorable in appearance, but not in substance what it claims to be. Color. An appearance, a semblance, a simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real. A prima facie or apparent right. Okay, now these are some words that we're going to be talking about a lot lately now. Prima facie and apparent, okay, or appearance, okay. Hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality, a disguise or a pretext, okay. It's a fraud. Colorable, that which is an appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be, hence counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. Prima facie. Prima facie, at first sight, on the first appearance, on the face of it, so far as can be judged from the first disclosure. Presumably, okay? And this is another word that we're going to be looking at a lot. A fact presumed to be true unless disproved by some evidence to the contrary. So all presumptions can be defeated. You have to understand what's going on so that you can defeat them. If you don't know the presumptions they're taking, then how can you defeat them? And they're certainly not going to tell you. Presumption of fact, an inference, affirmative or disaffirmative, of the truth or falsehood of any proposition or fact drawn by a process of probable reasoning in the absence of actual certainty of its truth or falsehood, or until such certainty can be ascertained. Boy, that was made up by lawyers, what that was done. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Presumption of law, a rule of law that courts and judges shall draw a particular inference from a particular fact or from particular evidence unless and until the truth of such inference is disproved. A rule which in certain cases either forbids or dispenses with any ulterior inquiry. Okay, so I think we all know a little bit about presumptions anyways. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Presumably, fit to be assumed as true in advance of conclusive evidence, credibly deduced, fair to suppose by reasonable supposition or inference, what appears to be entitled to belief without direct evidence, to assume beforehand, presume, to assume beforehand, in a more technical sense, to believe or accept upon probable evidence. It is not so strong as a word as infer, though often used with substantially the same meaning. The code is only prima facie evidence of the laws of the United States. Okay, so when the statutes at large, when where an inconsistency between the United States Code and the statutes at large appears, the statutes at large prevail, and that's where you have to go to the Hansards in Canada, right? You got to read what Parliament actually passed or what the legislature actually passed, because I guarantee you that they're making changes. You see what I'm saying? And there could be, there probably are errors in the wording and all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so you got to understand that if it's not exactly what was passed by the legislature, then it's called law. If it's passed by the legislature by throwing the rules out, or in some impropriety by not reading it and something like that, then it's called law. It's not a valid law. And this is another one. Basically, the statutes at large, the code cannot prevail over the statutes at large were too inconsistent. And in Canada, I don't believe there's a code anywhere that I know about. They're all basically the statutes at large, right? And which is basically they're modified every time. In other words, the legislature might pass an amendment to the Highway Traffic Act. Well, all they do is they put the change in the actual act. So when you download it, you get the updated act, you know, with all the changes. You see what I'm saying? So you still have to, that's kind of like a code. You still have to read that thing and compare it with all of the stuff that was actually passed. An unconstitutional act is not law. It confers no rights, it imposes no duties, affords no protection, it creates no office, it is in legal contemplation as inoperative as though it had never been passed. Absolute nullity. An act that is void because it's against public policy, law, or order. Nullity is non-curable. It may be invoked by any party or by the court. Adjustum generis. And this is another thing they do in statute writing. It's of the same kind, class, or nature in the construction of laws, wills, or other instruments. The adjustum generis rule is that where general words follow an enumeration of persons or things by words of a particular or specific meaning, such words are not to be construed in their widest extents, but are to be held as applying only to persons or things of the same general kind or class. For example, if a law refers to automobiles, trucks, tractors, or motorcycles, and other motor-powered vehicles, vehicles would not include airplanes, since the list was land-based transportation. So this is actually United States Code section 20, this is Internal Revenue Code where it defines what a person is. And so the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. So based on adjustum generis, right, it says of the same kind.
Yeah.
The word person, does anybody want to tell me what a person is?
Estate, trust, partnership, company.
Okay, that's true. What's an individual?
It excludes all others.
Huh?
The word individual excludes all others.
Well, it would be the same.
So it's a contradiction what they've written there.
No, actually, an individual is a fictitious entity.
Yeah, a trust,
I
an
thought it
estate, a
excluded all
partnership.
others as well.
Why?
When you're talking about the individual, that's one.
Right, it's a,
So that, the term itself excludes all others. If you're an individual, it's about you. It's not about the corporation or anything, it's about you.
well, no, that's the point though, is that an individual is a fictitious entity, so it's not about me. It's about a fictitious entity that's got only a Sesticate trust, basically, is what it is. See what I'm saying? It's got only one party. There's actually, in the United States, there's a Title 15, United States Code Section 44, defines a unincorporated corporation as it says basically that it can have a board of directors and certificate holders and officers, and it may not have, basically. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, an individual is a fictitious entity. The important thing to understand here is that an individual is a fictitious entity. And that's the important thing, because it's listing other fictitious entities. A trust, a state, partnership, association, company, or corporation. They're all fictitious entities. So then, based on this definition, an individual is also a fictitious entity.
What's that word?
You just want to write it down.
EJUSDEM, generis.
Yeah.
You can find it in any law dictionary under their maxims. Include. Include is to confine within, to hold as an enclosure, take in, attain, shut up, contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. In other words, it's limiting. And there's a whole bunch of definitions that go along the same way. Actually, this is Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Well, Webster's 1828 edition says include is to confine within, to hold, to contain as a shell of a nut includes a kernel. A pearl is included in a shell. To comprise, to comprehend, to contain. Okay, that's Webster's. This is Black's 6th. Include, to confine within, hold as an enclosure, take in, attain, shut up, contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. And there's even Supreme Court cases that include, or the participial form thereof is defined to comprise within, to hold, to contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve. And then, so let's actually go back to this 26 USC. It uses the word include. So it's saying the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. Is there anything else that it might be listing?
It can't be, because the definition of the word include.
Exactly. Exactly. So what they're doing is they're trying to confuse you if you think about it, because if they really wanted to be clear, they would say it just means. You see what I'm saying? But they want those people who are ignorant of the law to think that there's something there that's not. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's exactly what that is. Expresso, this is another maxim of law. Expresso unius e exclusio alterius. It's a canon of construction holding that to express or include one thing implies the exclusion of the other or of the alternative. For example, the rule that each citizen is entitled to vote implies that non-citizens are not entitled to vote. It's pretty simple. You know? But again, it's further evidence that of what in these statutes, that when they say something, that's all that's there. It's not something that you can dream up, okay? And this is actually, this is something that people on my group, actually, some of them, you know, I kicked a guy off the group here recently because of this, because there's summaries and there's citations, okay? And sometimes the citation, sometimes the summary has to be done because the citation would be like 2 pages. And it's way too lengthy, and so a summary is way better. And people get on my case about, you know, stuff in my paperwork that I can't find that in this court case. Well, you idiot, it's a summary. And it's a summary of what the court case says. It's not, you know, actually in the case. And so in this case, this is a U.S. versus Minker case where, and this is actually a citation. And but it says that, but the subpoena is in the form of an official command, and even though improvidently issued, it has some coercive tendency, either because of ignorance of their rights on the part of those whom it purports to command, or their natural respect for what appears to be an official command, or because of their reluctance to test the subpoena's validity by litigation. So that's the actual citation. But I like the summary way better. Because of their respect for what appears to be a law, many people are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights due to ignorance. Okay? So that's the one I use. But, you know, somebody, you know, and this is one of the things I tell them, if they watch my presentations, they'll know that it's a summary. You know, that's my attitude. And there was a guy that I kicked off the group here recently because he was saying, that's not on that court case. Well, yes, I know that. And I didn't answer, and he kept getting on my case, so I kicked him off.
We're even more scared to get on this.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm not saying don't ask questions, but just, you know, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have kicked him off. I don't know. I told him, first of all, I explained it. Ultimately, I explained it. I told him it's a summary. You know, if you watch the videos, you would have known it's a summary. And, you know, I may not, I usually try not to kick people off the first time, but if they want to argue with me, then I kick them off. But, you know, anyways. This is another court case. Penhallow versus Doan's Administrators. This is actually, there's about a 2-page diatribe that talks about, it says, a distinction was taken at the bar between the state and the people of the state. It is a distinction I am not capable of comprehending. And then he goes through about a 2-page diatribe about why he can't comprehend it, okay? And now we're going to go to the summary. And this is a summary you'll see all over the place, but it's not going to be on the case. It's a summary. And you need to understand that. And there's going to be other summaries too. But this is Penhallow versus Doan's Administrators again. But it says, inasmuch as every government is an artificial person, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only, a government can interface only with other artificial persons. The imaginary is neither actuality nor substance. It is foreclosed from creating and attaining parity with the tangible. The legal manifestation of this is that no government, as well as any law, agency, aspect, court itself, etc., can concern itself with anything other than corporate artificial persons and the contracts between them. And that's essentially what that judge said in that case. And once you understand that, again, that's another reason why they don't have any authority. See what I'm saying? And that's what that case says. That's why they create that Sesticate trust. They know they don't have authority over a living soul, so they want to create that entity, and they want to reel you in to get you to be the surety for their fictitious entity. It's exactly what they do. I've won court cases based on that. All codes, rules, and regulations are unconstitutional and lacking due process. That's a summary again. The sovereignty of a state does not reside in the persons who fill the departments of the government. This is one that we talked about before, actually. But in the people from whom the government emanated, and they may change it at their discretion. Sovereignty then in this country abides with the constituency and not with the agent, and this remark is true both in reference to the federal and state government. Whoops. Canada, this is Interpretation Act. Remember we were talking about includes, right? Canada, for greater certainty, includes the internal waters of Canada and the territorial seas of Canada. So is this Canada? I'm not in Canada.
Internal waters.
That's the Interpretation Act of Canada.
Wow, that's it, eh?
Yeah.
Just that.
And it says, in the very front of the act, it says, in all acts and regulations, the following apply. Really? Person, or any word or expression descriptive of a person, includes a corporation. Okay? So what's that got to do with me? This is criminal code. Every one person and owner and similar expressions include Her Majesty and an organization. Okay? So what's that got to do with me? Municipality includes the corporation of a city, town, village, county, township, parish, or other territorial local subdivision of a province, the inhabitants of which are incorporated or are entitled to hold property collectively for a public purpose. This is actually probably true, okay? Because if you're in a corporation, then you are a corporation. So I'm very careful when I make my affidavits up. If you look, like here's an affidavit I did against Elizabeth. Or a criminal complaint, actually, against Elizabeth. You can look at it. But it's Delaware Republic, Kent County. Okay, that's the de jure entity. The fiction is County of Kent. Okay? So, and then the fiction is State of Delaware. See what I'm saying? Because what happens is a proper noun in proper English,
British English.
the word Delaware is a proper noun, and county is an adjective describing the noun. The adjective is supposed to follow the noun, okay? If the adjective is before the noun, as in county of, or state of Delaware, state is, then it's a fiction. It's not proper English. By definition, it's fiction.
It's a corporate title.
It's a corporate title, exactly. And so, once you understand that, you basically take yourself out of, just like there's City of New York and New York City, okay? New York City is the common law entity. City of New York is the corporation that runs operations there. See what I'm saying? And same thing with Edmonton, okay? There's actually, Edmonton is a regional municipality, I think, isn't it? Isn't it, or municipal district, I think?
Yeah.
Well, actually, there used to be a municipal district of Cardston, and they changed it back to a county, because the county is the de jure entity. The municipality, again, is a corporation. And you want to get away from those. That's a way of reeling in the people, and so there used to be a county of Edmonton. When I was in Ontario, I was in Durham County. Actually, I was in the regional municipality of Durham. Actually, I wasn't in that. I was in Durham County. But the area where I lived was in the regional municipality of Durham. There was a regional municipality of Durham, is what it was called, okay? But I would always put on my documents, I filed lawsuits, I did all sorts of stuff, and I always put down Durham County. And then one day, I saw this vehicle that had Durham County written across the side of it, and it was going down the road. So Durham County was still there. It's just that for all the masses, they were supposed to believe that they were in this regional municipality of Durham, which is a corporation, which means you're a corporation. You see what I'm saying? So it's all in what you say, and a lot of it's very subtle. That's the point. A lot of it's very subtle, and you have to think about what you say and how you say it. See what I'm saying? And it's, it's what, by your own words, they get you, you know? They do, you know. Alberta Interpretation Act. Person includes a corporation and the heirs, executors, administrators, or other legal representatives of a person. That's the Alberta Interpretation Act. So what's that got to do with me? Driver of Traffic Safety Act means any person who is driving or in actual physical control of a vehicle. So what's that got to do with me?
We use operator license.
Remember that case that I talked about where it said that was a US case that said that no enactment is binding on Her Majesty or affects Her Majesty's rights or prerogatives? Remember it said the people instead, the king or the people? Remember that? Remember that? Remember you asked about that? I was reading that earlier. Well, this is the Alberta Interpretation Act. No enactment is binding. This is basically, no enactment is binding on Her Majesty or affects Her Majesty or Her Majesty's rights or prerogatives in any manner unless the enactment expressly states that it binds Her Majesty. So, if you read the Criminal Code of Canada, remember, we'll go back a couple here. Right here. So the Queen is subject to the Criminal Code of Canada. That's what it says. And an organization, fictitious entity. No enactment, okay, this is Manitoba. Driver's license required to drive a motor vehicle. A person may not drive a motor vehicle on a highway unless the person holds a valid driver's license of a class that authorizes the person to drive the class of motor vehicle being driven and carries the driver's license while driving. So, again, that's all commercial. And I'm not sure if I have a bunch of those ones on driver, but there's actually a whole bunch of law dictionary definitions I've got. I wonder if I've got them in here somewhere. But that talk about, I might have them in right to travel. We'll be going through a right to travel one, and there could be some stuff in there. I'll bet you there will be. Anyways, a driver is someone that's doing it for hire. Okay? If you're not doing it for hire, you're not a driver. You know? Anyways, in an enactment, operators, the same thing too, by the way. Operators doing it for hire. In an enactment, owner includes a person in possession of a motor vehicle under a contract by which he or she may become the owner under full compliance with the contract. In other words, they're talking about a loan, basically. But that's who the owner is. So the owner has a loan on the vehicle. So I guess you're not an owner then if you own the vehicle and it's paid for. One of the things, that's the reason I transferred my truck into the trust, because I'm not the owner. It's owned by a trust. See what I'm saying? Driver, this is Motor Vehicle Act. Sometimes these lawyers, just twist it all around. But anyways, driver means a driver who holds a driver's license on which condition is imposed and includes any such person. They twist it all around. Ontario, every act and regulation, person includes a corporation. Now, it's similar preamble in all of these interpretation acts. In Ontario, it's called Legislation Act. But in Canada and in Alberta, it's an interpretation act. But it's at the very beginning, it has a very similar, in every act and regulation, the following, you know what I mean? Highway Traffic Act of Ontario, in this act, driver means person. So, what's it got to do with me? Public Utilities Act, this is interesting. If any person supplied by any public utility, so it's all fictitious entities, neglects to pay, then it talks about how they can cut them off, okay? So the point is that's why they want the identification to prove so that they can show that you're a person. You see what I'm saying? And then they can cut you off if you don't pay the bill. There's a guy here in Edmonton. I don't know. Does anybody know Boulanger?
Yeah.
Well, he was telling me how he had sent a letter. Let's see, how did he do that? They sent him a bill, the utility company, and he sent it back, refused for fraud, because they sent it to a zip code in all black capital letters. Okay, He sent it back, refused for fraud, and then he called them up and said, look, I got this bill, I had to send it back, refused for fraud, because it's made out to a fictitious entity at a fictitious address. He said, I want to pay the bill, please send it back with no zip code, or postal code, I should say, and upper and lower case, and I'll be happy to pay the bill, I want to pay the bill. And next month, same thing. They don't send it back, by the way. Next month, same thing. They send it to him, refused for fraud, calls him up. 14 months later, he's still calling him up, and he decides to move, and so he gets the utilities disconnected, and they forgive him the bill. And if you think about it, there's a couple things going on there. First of all, if you want to pay it, you offer to pay it, then you've offered to pay, so then the debt's discharged. You see what I'm saying? And that's probably the big thing. And then plus, they can only deal with the fictitious entity. You see what I'm saying? And that's why they send it to all block capital letters, yes.
Do you know who he's speaking to, or like when he calls?
Just the number that you call for the utility company, whoever answers the phone on the other end, some
Yeah, but they probably
receptionist.
didn't give them utilities in the new place though, huh?
You know, I don't know. I don't know. But he said that they forgave him the bill. And so why would they not? I mean, the bill is showed as paid. It's not like he hasn't paid the bill. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they disconnected his power?
No, he moved.
No, they didn't disconnect him till he was ready to move. Till he called up and said, I'm moving.
You mentioned the postal code, mentioning no postal code. What's the significance of that being no postal code exempt thing? I keep seeing it. Is that?
That's the United Nations thing.
All postal codes are commercial. So if you are in a postal code, then you're in a corporation.
Well, can you mail anything without a postal code on it?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Here, take a look at this.
What does the post office do when you just...
It gets to you just fine.
Really? Just like that?
Just like that.
And you pay the same fees, or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure you do.
Yeah, I'm seeing postal code exempt, you're doing it on everything.
Sorry?
Postal code exempt.
I put it in the States because, yeah, as notice. But in Canada, I just don't put it on there. Matter of fact, on my bail paperwork, there's no postal code on it too.
Right.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. They even acknowledged it. Matter of fact, they wrote. I don't know if you guys want to. Anybody else wants to look at this at all? That's a letter I got from the Court of Appeals. And notice it says Glen Winningham. I always tell them it's Glen Winningham House of Fern, right? Well, the point is that at common law, the reason I do House of Fern is that, does anybody know the Queen's last name?
No. Oh, yeah, of course, Windsor.
Right,
Yeah.
yes. And most people don't know that. And the reason is because the family name is never mentioned, right? It's just Queen Elizabeth, right? At common law, only your given names are ever mentioned. And so they know that. And I tell them Glen Winningham House of Fern, right? Fern is the family name. And they always say, Dear Mr. Winningham. Given names is all that's mentioned. See what I'm saying? They know it. They know it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But didn't you say?
I can't tell you how many letters I've gotten like that, huh?
And Winningham would technically
Sorry.
be the middle name?
Wasn't the postal codes and the zip codes military related?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's commercial.
Yeah,
It's
that's-
martial law.
Right.
Get a load of this. Indian Act is a person. It's a fiction again. So the First Nations people are fictions. Elector is a fiction. Elector means a person. Indian Act. Notwithstanding anything in this charter, the rights and freedoms referred to in are guaranteed equally to fictions. In other words, Dominion legislation, even though it deals with Dominion property, okay? Government legislation deals with government property. If you think that it affects you, then you are a slave. You are their property. The words person and whoever include corporation, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. That's the United States Code, Section 1. So it's all fictions. Texas Transportation Code. Person includes a firm, partnership, association, corporation, individual. Texas Government Code. Person includes a corporation, government entity, agency, business trust, partnership, association, or other legal entity. It's only legal entities. Operator, Texas Transportation Code, is a person who drives. So it's a fictitious entity. Police officer means an officer authorized to direct traffic or arrest persons. So they're not authorized to arrest anybody but fictions. And in fact, they even call them traffic regulations. State, Texas Government Code. I don't know how much of this Texas stuff you guys want to go through. We could whiz through it. But state, that's getting kind of complicated, but includes any state, any subject to the legislative authority of the United States of America. District.
There's separate corporations. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're all of the states are, like there's actually two Texas. There's two states of Texas.
Yeah.
There's the state of Texas in upper lowercase, which is the de jure entity, and you'll never see it anywhere hardly. And then there's the state of Texas in all block capital letters that's involved in everything. And runs the motor vehicle division and all of that stuff. Matter of fact, excuse me, I've talked to people in the motor vehicle division, and I was saying, I want to see your oath of office. And they say, I don't have an oath of office. Okay, well, that tells you that it's just a company. See what I'm saying? Now, the commissioner, whoever's running the show, has an oath of office, but the employees are just hired thugs, basically.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? United States includes a department, bureau, or other agency of the United States. Canada, this is Article 11 of the Articles of Confederation. Canada is part of the United States. Canada, acceding to this confederation and adjoining in the measures of the United States, shall be admitted into and entitled to all the advantages of this union, but no other colony shall be admitted into the same unless such admission be agreed to by 9 states. Now, think about this for a second. The Articles of Confederation were done in, I think, 1782. Okay? Well, I don't know if you remember, but Canada didn't exist then. I mean, Canada didn't exist for another, what, 75 years, probably. 1867, right? So how did they know Canada was going to exist? You see what I'm saying? It's like they knew they were planning things ahead, way ahead. See what I'm saying? Canada didn't exist for another 75 years. At that time, what there existed was Upper Canada, which was Ontario, Lower Canada, which was Quebec, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, right? As a matter of fact, I don't think Newfoundland even existed.
No, Newfoundland, 48.
Right.
So the word, all the shall be entitled to all the advantages of this union.
Right.
You wanna see something interesting?
Advantages.
You wanna see something interesting? Bob and I went to the archives of Alberta, and they have maps there of like 18 something. They have the districts named that didn't exist then, like Londonderry and you know, all
Really?
the, yeah. I said, how the hell did they know that? Those districts weren't there. I mean, Edmonton was like this, but they've got all the districts named all around. Remember that, Bob? It was like,
Right,
they do that.
Canada.
Well, the hidden hand, eh?
yeah. It's just
This is actually
mind-boggling.
a great letter. I don't know if you all read that letter when he passed it around. That it
Yeah, but
says
you
all
notice the guy
recordings-
didn't type his name in, he just signed it?
All recordings are for judges' use only.
Yeah,
In other words, the transcripts of your trials.
yeah. It's just unbelievable.
That's why they can do what they want with them.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, they're all private.
It's like going to the vet, taking your dog to the vet. You put them in there, put them in a pen, they give them the shot, they do what they want, and then they send you a bill.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing they do with us.
yeah.
Take you in there, they put you in the cell, they do what they want with you, and then
They send you a bill.
they send you a bill.
Uh-huh.
This is actually taken from Texas. Oh, it's not in here, isn't it? This is Texas government, Texas government code. Yeah, it doesn't have it in here. I'm pretty sure it's Texas government code. Anyways, section 541.002 says in this title, state has the meaning assigned in section 311 and includes a province of Canada.
That's awesome.
No kidding.
And
You
then,
often hear them referring to the province as the state.
well, it is. It is a state.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Canada's a confederation. I'm surprised I don't have that in here because I know I have it. I need to put it in here. Maybe I should make a little note here. But I think I will.
So what's the relationship then, Canada?
Canada's a confederation. And you look up in a law dictionary, a confederation is a group of sovereign states. Matter of fact, I have seen, I didn't see it,